I'm curious why space, uh, and I mean science fiction in particular, but that's also related to space. So, space exploration, why is that a topic of interest to the alt right or the far right?
I mean, I think for a number of reasons. I mean, it does have great propaganda value for them. It presents a kind of exciting image for science fiction fans. But I also think it does a lot of ideological work for them. There's a great book called Astrofuturism by DeWitt Douglas Kilgore, and he argues that space has often served, particularly in the US consciousness, as a place where racial tensions and conflicts get resolved. We have different versions of this, but it's one is Star Trek, and we can talk about how much the alt right hates Star Trek. But the idea that humanity goes out into space and they meet people who have blue skin and antennae or whatever, and they learn to tolerate and include everybody ultimately, and that also trickles down to a united humanity as well. Or the narrative of looking back at the pale blue dot and realizing how fragile and small Earth is, and we're all in it together is another version of this. Or in maybe more sinister versions, there's a militaristic version of this where humanity goes into space and meets the bug-eyed monsters and fights them and realizes that we all have to unite. Ronald Reagan would often sort of give a speech where he'd say, if the aliens came down, the Soviets and the US would come together against the shared threat of the other instead of othering each other, essentially. But for the alt-right, like, space becomes a way of solving racial problems because it's a place where there are no non-white people. I think that they're really drawn to the idea of colonization and a new frontier, but they don't want to colonize places where there's an indigenous non-white population that they might mix with. So space becomes a way of imagining, as the Nazis would put it, a Lebensraum, a living space for white people that they can go and have a kind of racially pure society. That's one version of this. Another is that space exploration itself has a eugenic effect. They think that only the best and the brightest, the people with the right stuff, are going to be picked to go out into space. And then everybody else will be left who are unfit on Earth. And as a result, we'll see the emergence of an elite, maybe even post-human version of humanity in space that's better than everyone else, because only people with advanced degrees who are healthy are going to get picked to go out into space.